Welcome back to WagerTalk.com. Friday Sweet 16 action. The game that we are going to highlight is Syracuse and Duke. We've got Syracuse. Ralph, I'm going to come to you. A lot of people, the beginning, whenever the bracket shows came out and they put Syracuse in that play-in game to Arizona State, they were talking that neither of those two teams belonged even in the big dance. And here we are. We've got Syracuse 3 games later in the Sweet 16. Is this the end of the road for them?
Yeah, but basically, you know, Syracuse is not one of the best teams, shouldn't have been there, but why do they win? Because they're so unique with their defense. You know, they play mediocre in the ACC because those teams prep for them twice a year. Those teams prep for them in the offseason. Arizona State doesn't see that zone. Well, Washington, with the old Syracuse assistant, started that zone a little bit, but it takes years to progress. Syracuse goes through, can shut down their opponents. Duke knows this zone very well. Now, with that being said, I'm leaning towards the under again. You know, the score was 60-44 when they played back on February 24th. Duke doesn't care if they run up the score here or not. They just want the comfortable win. Syracuse is a team that'll keep that slow pace going no matter what. Syracuse isn't a team that fouls. Boeheim doesn't start that fouling down 10 or 12 with a couple of minutes left. Total is 133, and I like the under.
Kelly, looking at this one, we know what Syracuse is going to do with that defense, but over this last 10-12 games of the season, this Duke team had a little bit of a change defensively. They went to more of a zone, and it resulted in them playing great defense. In fact, over the last 12 games, they held 8 of their last 12 opponents to 39% or less shooting, and none of the 12 teams shot over 44% against them. They can play defense as well, and they've got many more offensive weapons than Syracuse does. Do you see any way that Duke gets the separation and then forces Syracuse to have to get out of their comfort zone?
You know, this is a tough one for me. Man, I made this game 11. I'm looking at Jim Boeheim as actually being the X factor here. This is his 19th Sweet 16 appearance. He's 7-1 as a double-digit seed. It's really hard, especially how well they played against Michigan State last week. I'm looking to make a case for this team, but then we talk about, you know, they've seen this Duke team twice. They just saw them a little under 2 months ago, lost 60-44 on February 24th, and I'm going, whoa, maybe I'm not ready to back the Syracuse team just yet. They have covered 3 straight, obviously, in postseason play, but they are just 5-9 as a dog on this season. This is really tough. Like you said, yeah, we can talk about 2-3 zone all day and how Duke is going to get past that. But 11.5 is a lot of points in the Sweet 16, and it's making me a little wary. I don't have a play on this one, but I'm going to listen diligently to see what everybody else is on.
Preston, you look at Sunday's game with Syracuse against Michigan State, and it was like 6-something left in the first half, and the score was like 16-15. I mean, it was as slow of a pace as you could possibly have. But you look at Michigan State, and they're not a team that's got, you know, a ton of offensive weapons. Even though a lot of people had Michigan State going to the Final Four, they got Michigan State in their game. I don't see them getting Duke into the Syracuse-style game. I think Duke just has too many offensive weapons and can hit from outside that'll crack that 2-3 zone.
So I disagree with a lot of people on this Michigan State-Syracuse game and then how it relates to Duke. And I disagree that Michigan State played the Syracuse game. A lot of people look at the score, they watch the game, and I think immediately you say, wow, Sparty played terrible, they're not very good. And Syracuse, the zone, like it did it again, like they always find ways to win these games. I'll bring a new perspective to this because – and I need to defend Tom Izzo a little bit because he got ratted out after the game all over Twitter. And outside of not missing free throws on purpose at the end of the game with a few seconds left down 2, they absolutely destroyed the Syracuse zone. They had 29 offensive rebounds, like an absurd amount. Like that's horrible defense. Sure. They took 37 threes, 31 of which were considered wide open and defender not within 3 feet. They only made 7 of them, so it's under 25% from 3 on wide open threes. Langford, a guy who a couple weeks ago was on pace to set the record for the greatest shooter from 3 in the history of college basketball, was 1 of 7. 6 were considered wide open threes. They shot, it was like something like 8 of 26 on shots in the paint. They got to the free throw line, only shot like 60% from the free throw line. They crushed the zone. Like Syracuse had no answer other than every shot missed. And I think it was something like it was 0 points the last 6 minutes until a couple free throws right at the end because Syracuse fouled on purpose. And Sparty just couldn't make a shot. Duke's very similar in that they're going to get a lot of offensive rebounds. They're probably not going to shoot 20% from three. They're definitely not going to shoot 24% from inside the paint. My number's 13. I laid Sparty on 8, so maybe that's why I'm biased. I bet -8. It got to 10, and I'm thinking, great. And they destroyed them. If they had played the next day, I would have laid 8 again every single time.
Sure.
I think they win by 20. So Duke's really close for me. I don't know if I want to do it just because I'm still bitter about that other game. But I think if they get as many open looks and as many, they're not going to get 29 offensive rebounds, but even half that many more shots. It was like Syracuse had 1 made 3. All these stats, like how do they actually win that game? And it was just because Sparty was just shot that poorly. So I think Duke, they'll shoot a lot better, and they should get the easy W, and I think they actually do cover.
Do you attribute any of that bad shooting to the fact that the Big Ten had that extra week off this year because they played their tournament so earlier? I know they played
rest. We talked about it.
They played 2 days before, and I think they shot pretty well against Bucknell from 3, especially in that second half.
If you would have
but they had 31 open threes. Like you're in a practice gym. Like I could go hit 15 out of 31. So for these guys to only make that, it's just
I hear a bet.
we'll go right now. We'll see.
Dinner, money, both.
So I just think it was just really bad variance Sparty's way. And other than the very end where they're supposed to down 2, shooting a free throw miss on purpose, I think it was a great game plan. And I think Duke will do similar stuff and recognize that really Syracuse did get beat down in that game. And so I like Duke. I think Scott's left. I don't know if you have any different thoughts.
No, I agree. I think we were reading the same stuff afterwards about all the open shots that Michigan State just didn't make. It was as simple as that. You said you make this line 13. I also think it's a 13.5, 14-point line as far as my rating. You couldn't ask for more neutral. It's in Omaha. It's the house that Dana Altman built. And you've got an area that nobody cares about Syracuse. Nobody cares about Duke. So it's a situation where you're going to have a neutral floor. The line's 11.5. I think it was 13 at Cameron Indoor just a few weeks ago.
Was that the close?
I think it was 13.5, right around there. And there's not been a big adjustment on this, but having said that, Duke kind of did play Syracuse's game at Cameron Indoor back on, I think it was February 24th. Mm-hmm. They shot less than 40%. They only took 17 three-pointers. They had a horrible night from the three-point line.
And two of 18.
2 of 18.
11%. Syracuse just runs that well.
Exactly.
At everything. I don't know how. No one makes shots against them.
But they didn't shoot a crazy number.
They won by 16 anyway.
Yeah, and I was going to say, that's the difference, though, is that Duke plays fierce defense also. They're top 20 in field goal percentage allowed. They're top 20 against the tray. They're going up against a team that, maybe us 5 could actually have a better shooting percentage than Syracuse from the three-point line if we didn't have anybody defending us. It's that crazy. They are bad. They're like 310th in field goal percentage. So everything's got to go their way to be able to win this game. Now, we're talking about the point spread, which is basically 6 buckets. But again, I don't think that they're going to be able to hang this number. In Duke's last 19 games against teams that force less than 14 turnovers per game, they've won those games by an average score of 80 to 65. They've covered 14 of those games. I don't know that they're going to get to 80. It might be a first team to get to 65 wins this game. I don't think that Syracuse is going to have an easy time topping 50. So I got to go. I'm with Preston on this one. I read the same stuff afterwards. The open missed shots, the number of open missed shots by Mich State. I make Duke 13.5 in that neighborhood. I know that's a little bit different than, like I just said, Cameron Indoor was 13. They're only getting a 2-point adjustment for playing on this neutral floor. But I just think it's going to be too tough for Syracuse to overcome a defense that also shoots well at the other end. You know how many times these guys have matched up against each other, Boeheim and Krzyzewski, in a big dance game? All these years, all these deep runs by both of these programs, they faced each other once in their entire coaching careers in the big dance. And not that it matters, it's just some useless trivia, but Coach K actually won that game 20 years ago. But I think Duke wins this one 15, 16-point victory.
Real quick, I think Bagley was out for that Syracuse
game. He was,
game.
that's right.
And so that was why the number was lower,
right.
and so that's why there's a little discrepancy.
Sidebar to the 2 of 18 for Duke. Obviously, you can't expect them to shoot that bad, and they still won by 16. But the flip side to that is Syracuse only got to the foul line 6 times in that game. They were 4 of 6 from the foul line.
Well, Duke playing in zone now, they don't foul anyone.
Exactly.
No one gets to the line against them. It's part of the zone's effectiveness, actually.
Yep.
All right, good stuff, guys. And if you want to get a 7-day all-access package at WagerTalk, great week to do it, guys. You can get all the NBA plays, all of the college basketball, NIT's going as well, in addition to the Sweet 16, and then we'll have the Elite 8 coming up on Saturday and Sunday. Pick your favorite capper, 7 days, $99. You won't miss a play. Check it out at WagerTalk.com. And guys, if you enjoy our videos, do us a favor, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and be sure to share it with all your friends. We'll be back next week. Enjoy the games, and want to thank Our special guests, Preston and Kelly, coming in this week. And Kelly, home of the Cinderella Killer Kansas State team there. You know, you just wrecked everybody's Cinderella story there on Sunday, but we're glad to have you here. Scott and Ralph and your host, Marco D'Angelo, will be back next week. Thanks.